My name is Abby Gilfillan, and we're here at the virtual open house talking about intensity zones and how the different strategies in Code SMTX will be able to implement our vision for intensity zones. Some of the problems that have been identified in intensity zones include that, with the exception of downtown, our intensity zones are currently regulated under the same development regulations as the rest of the city. Current development requirements lead to more suburban and auto-centric development. Density is not supported or encouraged under our current development requirements and standards. Vision San Marcos Comprehensive Plan anticipated that intensity zones would be areas of change. These are the areas that will accommodate our growing population over the next 30 years, out to 2030. These are anticipated as areas that are well planned. They are areas where people can meet their daily needs within a short walk, bike, transit trip, or drive. Code SMTX strategies that we are employing in intensity zones in order to meet this vision would be to rezone these areas. As I said, these are areas of change, and in order to accommodate that change, we have to have different zoning districts that will let that happen and be a reality. So those zoning districts are called character districts, and they are based more on intensity rather than use. So the two strategies that we're talking about employing in intensity zones are to rezone those areas, as well as to create zoning districts that match the vision for what those areas should look like. Some of the criteria that we'll use for city-initiated zoning in these areas would be, we'll be looking at whether or not the property is inside the city limits, whether or not it's inside an intensity zone, and whether or not it's in a master planned community. So all of those criteria are important factors into whether or not the city is going to be initiating rezoning. In addition, the flooding in San Marcos is an important factor in identifying areas for growth and intensity zones. We will not be rezoning any property that's in the 100-year floodplain as part of this project and initiative. Other factors for selecting appropriate zoning districts would be the current zoning classification. So we'll be looking at what is the land entitled to now. We'll be looking at the overall plan for those intensity zones and how that will build out, and illustrative plans have been developed and regulating plans have been developed for these areas. And we'll also be looking at and talking about the property owner feedback. We'll be working closely with property owners in these areas and selecting zoning districts for rezoning. These new zoning districts that we're looking at incorporating as part of Code SMTX in the intensity zones are, like I talked about before, they're based on intensity. They are form-based codes, and they promote a walkable, mixed-use type of environment. So while use is an important factor, it's not the main factor in these zoning districts. So you can see on this board a little bit of, we have 3 different zoning districts. Actually, we have 4 different zoning districts we're proposing. A character district 3, 4, and then 5. A character district 5 is similar to what you would see downtown. A 4 has more compact housing, but usually individual lot type of housing products. And then you also have a character district 3, which is really your traditional detached single-family housing. You also have a character-based planning area that we're proposing, and that would be for larger tracts of land where property owners would have the option of mixing these 3 different character districts while staying within certain percentages. So there would be percentage requirements for character 3, percentage requirements for character district 4 and 5. So those are the zoning districts that we're proposing with Code SMTX for intensity zones only. Thank you for joining us for the virtual open house about the Code SMTX strategies and intensity zones. Please be sure to answer the survey questions right after this video that are pertaining to the 2 topics of creating new zoning districts and intensity zones, as well as having city-initiated rezoning of those areas.